Tell the people why you love cigars so much.
I love cigars because it's what changed my life, I guess, for the better. It's the thing that even though they kill you and all that kind of all that kind of stuff, right? But it actually turned my life a lot better. It's what got me into business. It's the thing that I picked, when I was an early 20-something-year-old. I was like 23, I think. I wanted to start my own business. I knew I didn't want to work for someone because I was a terrible employee. I was the kind of guy that if you hired to work for you and things went missing, it's me. So I figured, you know what? Probably not really cutting out for work, working for other people. I should probably start my own thing. I was 23 years old. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. You have limited exposure to the world, done limited things with your life. Like 4 things, so I love cigars, and I found an opening. I found that there was like this missing area in South Denver that didn't have cigars in that whole wealthy neighborhood. And I was like, oh, let me open up a little cigar kiosk. I love that place, right? I mean, it defines an entire era of my life. It defined my 20s and 30s, right? So obviously it plays a monstrous role in my life. But I got burned out. I got super burned out. You do the same thing long enough that, you kind of just lose the passion for over time. And it's not the cigars, by the way. It wasn't the cigars. It was the people, You were in a bar, you're surrounded by alcoholics and cokeheads.
Absolutely.
It gets old.
Name me one person that you would absolutely despise spending 24 hours in a room with smoking a cigar. And you have to communicate with them.
Any conspiracy theorist, I guess. Any conspiracy theorist. Anyone who's too fucking serious about anything.
Yeah, I hear you.
Honestly, I'm just such a laid back person, and I'm so just chill about everything in life. I'm more worried about just paying bills, or at least used to be, that that's all the shit I had time for. So it's when I get people who just get real intense about politics, or really anything for that matter, I'm like, how do you have the time to care? And I get it. People should care, and people should have a cause. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But just some people are just way too into stuff, man. Where do you find the time to enjoy your life if you're so into your mission statement? I don't know. That's just me. Because I got sued at the Robusta room. I got sued. My landlord wanted to actually evict me. So even though we were obviously permitted to smoke cigars, clearly, right? We were a cigar bar. And so the landlord permitted me to smoke cigars. But none of us had any prior experience with that. So the smoke has a fancy, it rises, right? We know that. And it has a fancy way of seeping into little nooks and crannies and finding open spaces and getting through them. So, you got neighbors, and it was kind of like a fancy, strip center, for lack of a better term. And so that smoke would find its way into places. And then I got pissed off neighbors complaining about smoke. So we would try to fix everything. We would go in and we'd seal up all the little nooks and crannies and all that kind of stuff. But there's stuff that you can't see. You got to get up into the floor joists, into the ceiling joists, and you can only reach so far. So we found that our neighbors, they were the ones that had these little penetrations leaking into their space. Well, we couldn't go into their space. I can't just go in there with a tool belt and start working in their space. And they wouldn't let us in. And the landlord didn't want to lift a finger because landlords, have this David and Goliath sort of a mentality. So nothing got done. So we ended up having to go to court twice. We go to court twice over both eviction lawsuits. We won both lawsuits, and we won attorney's fees back both times. But I poked at the bear too many times, Yeah, I won the money back, but still pissed off the bear at the end of the day, and only one guy gets to re-sign the lease, and when you piss him off enough times, he doesn't re-sign the lease anymore. So that's what happened there. How it turned into HVAC was literally behind this. I became an accidental HVAC pro. It's a really weird story. The judge basically said, he's like, all right, you win, but you still got to do something about it, right? You still have to make these changes. You still got to figure out a way to mitigate the smoke. I'm not just I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm letting you off of this court case, but so go do something about it. So then I had to call a bunch of HVAC companies, which I knew nothing about. I knew as much as HVAC as the average person knows how to turn the temperature up and down. That's all I knew. So I called a bunch of HVAC companies, and they came out and give me, these are commercial HVAC companies. These are the big boys, So they'd come out and they'd give me these ridiculously high quotes. And what I didn't know at the time is that they weren't even real quotes. They were the go away quote. They were quoting me a number so high just to get me to go away. And idiot that I was, I took them. So I took these quotes. Sorry, not your nickname. So I took these quotes and paid them. I ended up spending over $150,000 in HVAC equipment over the course of several years. And just because of the course of time over just getting my ass handed to me from these companies and these mega bills, I just learned how to circumvent a lot of these issues and learn how to kind of not do it myself, but learn how to find other guys who could do it for cheaper. And so that's how I got into HVAC. And one of the guys who was kind of just like an independent proprietor dude, knew HVAC real well. He and I became really good friends and became like excellent friends. He ended up basically was willing to do all kinds of work around the bar, including HVAC, electrical, plumbing, I mean, just anything. And he would do it for Bud Light, like literally Bud Light.
Wow.
And this wasn't me trying to lowball him. Like he would ask for Bud Light.
Okay.
And I was like, you sure? And he's like, yeah, Bud Light. I'm like, okay, Bud Light. So that's, and he drank a lot of Bud Light. But
I'm sure.
It was still didn't, I still came out ahead on that one. So he and I became really good friends. And one day he comes up to me and he's like, hey, do you want to start an HVAC company? He goes like, that's my thing. I'm good at that. And your business runs itself. Do you want me to do the heavy lifting and you run the sales and marketing? Went back and forth a few times and eventually said yes. And so that's how we got into it. So after HVAC, here's how I got into solar from HVAC. So I was in HVAC and I'm going into people's homes and selling them all these amazing things that they needed for their home and creating all these great relationships with these homeowners. And they would have bought a lot more stuff from me, but I didn't have anything to sell them, anything beyond what I was already selling them. And so I was like, I got to find something else I can sell. And fast forward, and it just became solar. That just became the obvious answer because I didn't have to actually go install it myself. We would find other people to do the installation, but we would then make a good amount of money on selling the actual system for people. So, and it's a win-win because, the people end up saving even way more. So it's a win for everybody. So I got into solar because that's how I started. And then we sold the HVAC company. So we exited out of that. We did well there. And then I just transitioned full-time into solar. So now I do a few different things in solar. So, we do residential solar sales. So we'll put, solar up on people's homes. I have a marketing agency for solar companies and for solar pros, sales pros, who want more leads and more ways to sell them and do a better job of selling.
Talk about the benefits of solar from your perspective.
It's really easy. People way overcomplicate it. Honestly, there's a couple ways that the average homeowner can go solar. The most common way is to take out a loan for it. That's what most people do. And that's fine. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's not my preferred way to do it. But so the idea, it's really simple. The idea is that you take out a loan for the whole thing. You don't have to come out of pocket any money, nothing like that. So the average homeowner will take out a loan for the whole solar and the monthly payments on it will be cheaper than what you're currently spending on your electric bill. So you win. It's really that simple. And then there's a 30% federal tax credit, so that lowers the price even more. So it's like whatever the loan is, just subtract 30% off of it, and that now makes your payments even 30% cheaper. So now everything I said, make it 30% better. It's that simple. And then the other way is the way that we do it. So we have a unique product here in Colorado. We call it the No Loan Solar Program. So we do all of that, except you don't have to take out the loan. My company essentially pays to put the solar on your roof. You get the end net result benefit, which is cheaper power, and you didn't have to take out the big ugly loan. That's how we do it.
What is the most challenging thing that you've experienced thus far as a businessman?
Everything. Everything. What is there not to, owning a business is challenges every day. You own a business, right?
Yes.
How many easy days a year do you have?
0.
I was going to say 2, 3, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's about right. Every day is a challenge, man. And that's why most people don't make it. It's not because there's something wrong with the business. It's just that most people just stop right before they hit success. So, but it's tough, because as well as I do, it's like what separates an idiot from a brilliant person, right? Doing the same, what's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing, expecting different results, but yet at the same time, what's the definition of a brilliant business owner? Doing the same thing just because you got to put in the reps. Now, you're not doing the same thing because you're making tiny little iterative differences every single time, right? But you need to put in the reps.
Who is somebody you looked up to as a child?
My dad. Yeah, my dad was the one that kind of taught me entrepreneurism. He was the one that taught me sales. He was the one that taught me how to ask for things. That you don't ask, you don't get. He's the one that, I want to say this funny story of my dad. My dad turned negotiation borderline gross. He would, my dad could walk up to a Coke machine and be like, I'll give you 25 cents.
Okay.
That was my dad. And I was like, Dad, come on. I'm like, because he would negotiate with people just bloodied. You know, he would just, you know, like to the point where it's like, Dad, like, you know, the other guy's got to feel somewhat good about the, you know, transaction too. He forgot, you know, he's old school. You know, my dad is old school mentality, old, you know, Eastern European immigrant mentality where it's like, I win and no one else wins, you know. And then there's, you know, over generations, that notion becomes more refined where you realize it's like, both parties have to win. There has to be a relationship. Without the relationship, then it's always a one-time transaction, and you're never going to get rich doing over and over just little one-time transactions. You need to build relationships.
If you could change anything in society today, what would you change?
Oh, I definitely know. I'd revamp I would revamp our education system. I would revamp what we teach kids in school. I can't stand that kids have to learn trigonometry. Like, fucking why? Why? Like, I can't tell you. I've owned so many businesses. Never once have I had to do anything beyond like basic division, and even that I barely ever do. You know, so it's like, why on earth are we teaching our kids all these nonsense subjects instead of the things that actually matter in life, like how to pay your bills and how not to overdraft your checking account and how to pay your taxes and how to save money for the future, how to invest in a business, how not to loan your friends money and get ripped off. Like, why? Why do we teach them completely useless things? It boggles my. I don't understand I assume that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, which I mentioned earlier, but like, I assume that like there's got to be some deep seedy organization out there that is, you know, causing this to happen, because it's like, how is this benefiting our society at all? Where our kids are growing up and they have no real life skills. So that's the thing that would change 100%.
So for somebody who wanted to start a business, what advice would you give them from top to bottom from your perspective?
First of all, it's hard. I mean, that's just needs to be really clearly drawn in the sand. Like, it's hard. Like, there's no question about that part. There's no such thing as get rich. Well, there actually is such a thing as get rich quick. It's very rare, but there's no such thing as get rich easy. Like, that part, forget it. That doesn't exist. Some people do get rich quick, but forget it. Like, if your plan is to start a business and you think you're going to get rich quick, just don't. Like, then don't start a business. But not everyone is cut out to start a business. First of all, you should have an honest assessment of yourself to figure out, like, am I the kind of person that is willing to work minimum 10 hours a day, upwards of 14 to 16 hours a day, doing the thing that I love? And that's the most important part, is it's got to be something that you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate, there's no way you can put in that many hours. It's just not possible. I mean, you know that. You've been doing this stuff long enough to know, like, you can't just half-ass that sort of thing. It's going to suck out every bit of energy in your entire life. So you have to be able to replenish that energy. And that only comes from passion. So find something you're passionate about. I can't guide you there. You know, find something that you're passionate about. And then it's a constant trial and error. Like, it's going to be a shit ton of failure. Like, that is, I think, one of the most important things that people need to know, is that none of the brilliant minds in our world, none of the Elon Musks or the Bezoses or any of those people, none of them made it the first time around. All of them failed numerous times. And they all got back up again, right? It's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up. And you're going to fall down, like, a lot. And so that's the thing. It's like, you know, if you're still the kind of person who's at home playing video games, don't start a business. I'm just telling you right now. Don't waste your time. Keep your job. When you're ready to put down the video games, and when you're ready to stop watching sports on the weekend, and when you're ready to really, really commit to something, then you know you're ready. And then you can have the work ethic to move forward. If you're still doing video games and sports on weekends and watching Netflix at night, it's unlikely you're going to work out. Very unlikely. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What is your biggest take that you've learned as a businessman thus far? Besides not getting sleep.
Yeah.
It's hard as shit.
The failure part is definitely the hardest, I think, for most people, because you don't know when to, you don't know, number one, there is no finish line. Business is not like a light switch. It's not like off, on, failure or success. There does come a point at which you start making money, so it feels like that light switch is on, but that light switch can be turned off so goddamn quickly and ripped out from underneath you. And that is a very sobering day in every business owner's life when that happens, and it happens to everybody.